We'd like to call this meeting together to order. This is the Weber County Commission meeting dated the 7th day of January of 2020. I'm Commissioner Scott Jenkins. I have Commissioner Frohr to my left and Commissioner Harvey to my right. And we welcome all you folks here today. Thank you very much for your attendance here. And it's good to have you. We want you to know it. Our invocation this morning will be offered by Brian Barron, after which a Pledge of Allegiance will begin by Sean Wilkinson, and our thought of the day will be by Commissioner Jim Harvey. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. Brian, go ahead.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this beautiful morning. We're grateful for this beautiful world that we live in, and we're thankful that we have the opportunity today to gather here together to discuss the needs of our county. We thank Thee for the leaders that we have here, for all the time and effort they put into serving us, and we pray that Thou wilt bless them and us as we discuss the items on the agenda, that we may have wisdom. These things we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I see Lynn Taylor over there giving the salute, and it makes me happy to see that, Lynn. We appreciate you and your service. Commissioner?
I wish that I could tell you where I learned this from, but it was from someone that I respect. I know that because I wrote it down. And it says this: when we are born, we are more alike than we are different. Somewhere along the way, we start to believe that more miles or distance we are from one another, the more different we must be from one another. It's only when we venture out into the world that we realize all the things that we share. If you don't like change, you'll probably like irrelevance less. I thought those were pretty poignant thoughts today. I didn't really know commissioners. I kind of knew the people that would possibly show up today in our meeting, but I didn't know the feelings of decades of gratitude I would have for many in the audience. The things I've learned, the kindness that's been shared with me and my family from them and from their parents. And consider it to be a real privilege to be serving them today. So that's my thought for today, Commissioner.
Great thought. Thank you very much, Mr. Harvey. We appreciate that. So we're now to the public comment portion of our meeting. Now, this does not have to do with our public hearing. If you folks are here for the public hearing to comment on that point will come up later on, so you'll have plenty of chance. But if there's others that have come to just approach the commission on other items, we would love to hear from you now, and feel free to come up and talk to us. All right, we normally don't have too many people come and talk to us. It's rare, but once in a while we have somebody. All right, so our first presentation today is John Bond. John, I appreciate you coming today. You folks will find this very interesting. We just retired some bonds, and I asked John to make a presentation to us in consideration of that, so we would know what we paid, what the overall expense of the bond was, and what our liability was. So, Mr. Bond, time's yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Commissioners. You asked me to come and explain what happened to the bonds with the conference center and this building, including the Egyptian Theater, what the expenses were as far as interest, or hard cash, what it cost, and what did we lose. What I'd like to do is frame it, if I could, in 3 different topics very quickly. One is consolidation, one is economic drive, and the other is the bond. And I say, what was consolidation all about? One of the main goals of the commissioners in 1992, 1994 was to look at the county and its makeup and say, what is going on here in downtown Ogden, and where is Weber County? Spencer Stokes at the time said, he called it a squiggly path to find county government. Because in the Ben Lomond or Radisson Hotel were with the commissioners, Joan Hellstrom and Spencer and Randy Williford, along with Susan and Velma Saunders. Planning and engineering was downstairs with Martin Moore and Curtis Christensen and Craig Barker. Downstairs below was Doug Dew and Shauna in human resources. At the basement was the Honeywell, the mainframe for the computer department. Bank of Utah had the Justice Court with Judge Story and Marcia and Cheryl Remkes. Across the street from that in West One Bank was the second floor of the computer department with Leonard Call and Bruce Thorpe. Up on 26th Street was the sheriff, Dearden and Paul Newey and the deputies and emergency services with Brad D. Down on Grant was the health department. Down on Lincoln was motor vehicle that had just been put in there with Michelle Maycock and Dave Hahn and Mindy Mon. Past that on Lincoln was operations with Gary Laird. Fairgrounds was just getting its footing out there with Commissioner and Jennifer. Animal control was in the backyard of Shorty Thompson.
That's right.
Municipal building had obviously the auditor, clerk, treasurer, the recorder, the attorney. The Ogden Police Department was downstairs. The jail was in the back. It was a squiggly line to find out where county government was. And when people came downtown, they had to kind of hunt and peck to find us. The second issue was the economic drive. What was going on in downtown Ogden at that time? Well, 2 focuses happened during that time frame. In 1980, 79, 80, the mall opened up. Huge economic impact for downtown in 1980. The next year, Newgate Mall opens up in 81 with its water slide, and if you remember those days. The next 10 years saw a lot of growth in downtown, and then in 93, 94, the Newgate Mall found that they had been renovated, and things changed. And the Ogden Mall started to become very challenged, business-wise. There was challenges in downtown, and a lot of discussion was had as to what to do to help shore it up. The mall was challenged. Dillard's had just gone out to the Newgate Mall, and the Ogden City Mall was challenging there. So the commissioners at that time looked and talked with Ogden City officials and said, what can we do to renovate, bring forth some economic growth, etc. And the discussion was had to consolidate all of these different services into one building as much as they could, and put in a conference center. And at the time, take the Egyptian Theater, which had been really worn down, and bring it back to life again. And that was the goal. The commissioners at that time said, okay, let's plan this thing out. They planned on borrowing $21 million to put together this building and the building across the street. The Ogden Standard Examiner says the decision is a highly significant urban renewal step for Ogden's Central Retail Business District. And this site will, when finalized, will allow ZCMIs to leave this facility and move across the street, remembering the gate or the bridge that went across Washington Boulevard at that time. Downtown Ogden is on the threshold of major renovation and revitalization with the finalization plans of the Performing Arts Center and Convention Center and the arrival of a professional baseball team and a possible construction of a stadium and renovation of the mall. Things were looking up for downtown Ogden at that time. This project here was a major part in bringing that together, as well as bringing all these services together for Weber County. At that time then, the discussion was had, well, what are we going to do then? How's this all going to look? And discussions were had with Ogden City and Weber State University. A lot of discussions were had as to say, how do we cooperate and bring us together as a community, which I think continues to this day as to how do we build our community together. The conference center had two main functions. One was to create an arts facility, and the other one was to renovate the theater. Weber State said, we will take charge of maintaining the maintenance and the operation of this facility, and we'll also contribute about $250,000 a year. The county said that they would take care of all of the maintenance and everything else, and Ogden City purchased all the property here and gave it to the county to get it to work. At that time, Ogden City said that they would donate money. Weber State said that they would put in $250,000 a year, which continued through this day. And Weber County then would take over the maintenance and everything else. As time went by, the pressures on the community changed and shifted, and the interest shifted and changed. Ogden City's donations changed. Weber State continued to donate $250,000 a year, got out of the maintenance, and Weber County took that over. Lots of people came to the forefront. I've got a letter here from the George S. and Dolores Eccles Foundation, donating $2 million to that agenda. There was a lot of activity to make this thing work. The county at that point went out for a loan or a bond for $28 million. Instead of 21, 28. During the course of the time, it was discussed that it needed to be higher. So in '95, they issued another $4.7 million in bonds. And in March of '97, they consolidated all that into a $35 million bond. When we work in our office, in the Treasurer's office with our finance committee, we look for opportunities to reduce costs and minimize interest. And as time went by, the interest rates changed, and we refinanced. We call it refunding, but we refinanced those bonds in various aspects based on state and federal laws, the IRS. And so that occurred again in 2005, it occurred in 2007, and occurred in 2009 that we were able to refinance or refund certain bonds that were in those series to reduce the interest cost. On the $28 million originally it was set up, the interest amount that was paid was $39 million projected. With the interest savings that we were able to do by the refinancing, we've saved, we reduced that cost almost by $4 million. I know your agenda's long today. I just thought I'd bring this to just as a illustration of the opening of the conference center, of what that was doing. And so that was occurred there, so you can see that. Just a poster that we had at that time. So what were the gains and losses? I think the community has to judge those. Was it expensive? It was very expensive. Did the amount of the bonds increase from the 21 to the 28 to the 35? They did, and I hope that guides you as decision makers for our community to judge future projects and make sure that we have them properly framed and the expectations appropriate as best as we can. Is the interest expensive? Yes. Has a conference center and this building helped stabilize downtown Ogden? I believe it has. Has it been an economic driver? Yes. Had we or could we have left the county offices strung all over downtown Ogden? It could have happened, yes. These are all what-ifs and might-haves, but I think you as commissioners and future commissioners and the community have to work together on large projects to make sure that we have the community's interest best at heart. Balancing that out, I guess, is the great challenge of what were the losses and the gains. But I think overall, the gains outweigh the loss because downtown now in Ogden thrives more, and I think we have to pay very close attention to the growth that helps our community and our way of life and our quality of life grow and sustain itself, which allows McCady Hospital to grow. That's the end of my conclusion, or that's the conclusion of my presentation for you.
So, John, how much did we spend in interest on that bond over the life of it?
$39 million.
Interest.
$39 million.
39 million in interest.
That was a projected,
Well,
it was reduced.
The bond was 39 million.
The bond was initially 28. It went to then 35. And of that amount, of that interest amount, we were able to reduce it a little over $4 million in that neighborhood. Yeah.
So you're telling me we paid $39 million in interest
Over 25 years, that's what I'm saying.
25 years.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow. Wow.
So there's your data.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I wanted to know. So, for you folks that are hearing this for the first time, what this does, this encapsulates the debate that goes on when you bond. You say, well, if we don't bond, then we don't have a building to use for 25 years. So let's bond, because then we get to use the building. And I understand that. That's a valid argument. We, as legislators, Commissioner Farrar and I, had this all the time on education buildings, didn't we? And they're saying, gee, if you have these new buildings, our kids, it benefits our children. So, but as you can see, we paid double what the building was worth.
As a
in that
clarifier,
bond.
the interest rate at the time was, we were getting 6.5 to 7.5% interest. Then it reduced to 4 to 5%, then to 3.5 to 4, and then from 2 to 4%. It was the last refunding or refinancing that we did, each time trying to take advantage of lower interest rates. So we tried every time that we could legally reduce that amount of interest by refinancing or refunding. We took advantage of every one of those that we could.
Well, it appears to me that the bond was managed wonderfully. I have no complaint about how the bond was managed. We took advantage of every opportunity we had to lower it.
We did.
But I have to admit, I'm blown away by the fact that we paid $39 million interest on a $35 million bond. That's $4 million more than the bond was worth. Like, wow. Wow. Okay, well, John, thank you very much. Hold on, any questions, commissioners?
No, but I'm going to jump in here for a second.
Yeah, jump in, both feet.
Both feet. John, with you, I remember when this whole thing was going down.
Certainly.
You said, and this is a huge dollar amount of interest. I'm not going to comment whether or not I would support the bond or not. I would think that most people in this room have not the ability to take out or to fund a new home with cash. Most everybody has to take out a loan to buy their home. So like when you buy a home, you have to pay interest. And a lot of times that interest is more than the cost of the home. Just like the interest on this particular project was more than the cost of this building and the conference center next door. I feel that building the conference center was a great thing for Weber County, and I'll just reiterate why. Right now, according to the Utah Department of Tourism, every person who owns a property receives a $1,318 annual credit. So your taxes are $3,000. They could have been $4,318 if we didn't have tourism in Weber County. Right now, our conference center, and you think, well, gosh, what even goes on over at the conference center? We're nearly overscheduled as it is right now. And unless you attend a Children's Crisis State Convention or a rock show or a council of attorneys, you probably wouldn't know what's going on over at the conference center. Most of us at the county were there this morning attending a meeting. They're nearly over capacity as it is right now. And the same with our theater. Most theaters, we have the Peary's Egyptian Theater. Most theaters that are doing well across the United States are scheduled one every 3 days. Our Piries Egyptian Theater is scheduled every 2.3 days, keeping in mind that when you do a show in a theater, you have to load in and load out. We have a very talented staff, a very capable staff, who work for, on the average of the market, according to the International Association of Auditorium Managers, work for about 60% of what they do in other parts of the country. So, did it cost us a lot of money in interest? Yep, millions. Did it cost us more than what we bonded for? Yep. I'm not for bonding. I like the idea of being able to pay cash. But sometimes in my life, I have not been able to pay cash for big ticket items. And when you can get a return of investment that goes directly into every household of $1,318 annually, I think the return of investment was good, and I commend Commissioner Stokes and Commissioner Hellstrom for great foresight back then. I think a lot of times they were highly criticized, but I've enjoyed that credit every year on my tax notice, and as well as anybody else who's owned property in Weber County, and so I'm glad, but I'm also glad that we're out of debt. We've paid off that last bond payment.
I didn't
Good for us.
I didn't know how many pieces and parts to bring into this presentation, but to this point, the commissioners at that time put together a proposal that was approved by the state to have a 1% restaurant tax, and that funded a majority of the bond payment. And so as far as funding it, the sourcing of that revenue flow to make that bond payment came mostly from that, or a large portion of it came from that restaurant tax that we get charged when we go out and eat.
So for the people who go to restaurants, now that could be tourists too. Let me tell you now what it does for the future. What it does for the future, or for this next year, as we all three know, because we just were in the budget, is now our Golden Spike Event Center, our Ogden Eccles Conference Center, and our Piries Egyptian Theater, as was mentioned. The Ice Sheet, the Weber County Shooting Complex that's out on Rulin White Boulevard, Fort Buenaventura, our Upper Valley Parks, the new archery center that's being constructed not on county funds but on DWR funds. All those things are now fully funded because of the commitment that was made 20 years ago. And this credit for tourism that all of us will enjoy will continue on because of that investment. So I think it was a good foresight. Again, would have been nice if we could have paid for it in cash back then. But I think the investment into the future was thoughtful, and it's proved out to be very successful. And not only did it do Ogden and our community well, but it's doing all of us and continue to do all of us well. So,
Commissioner Farr, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of comments. First off, I just want to thank Mr. Bond for the work that he does for this county. In my past 12 months working with Mr. Bond, his expertise, financial acumen, obviously benefited this county to a greater extent than most people ever realize, and I appreciate that, John. And the people of this county should as well. Speaking of bonds, and Senate Commissioner Jenkins mentioned it, I was for 10 years in charge of running the general obligation bonds for the state of Utah. I know a little bit about bonds. Probably over that period of time, under my name, we probably used the public credit card to over a couple $2 billion. That's billion, not million. There was times that we needed to look very seriously at when the proper time opportunity existed to bond. There was obviously some good times and bad times to bond. When you have plenty of cash in the bank, you use your cash, just like a normal household would. When you don't, and the opportunity exists for reasons that exist in the economy, that you take advantage of those. I remember back in 2011 or 2012, Commissioner Jenkins, the last night of the session, Weber State University had a very important building that was subject to my bonding bill. And without that bonding bill, a couple of buildings at Weber State never would have happened. We went into closed caucus at approximately 10:45 that night to twisted a few arms because we did have people in the legislature that were adamantly opposed to bonding. But if you remember, back in those days, we were just coming out of a recession. Construction costs were low, interest rates were low. That was a good, proper time to bond. So there are good times to bond. There are some times that it's best to use cash if you have it. So I again congratulate John for his effort making sure, and I congratulate and thank the commissioners in the past for having the foresight to bond for assets that we probably wouldn't have because we just didn't have the cash to pay for those.
Very good. I appreciate both your comments here. The only reason that I had John make this presentation to us today is, you know, a lot of times hindsight's 20/20, and you got to look back at what you did. And I just want you to know that there's an expense to what we do. And I agree with Commissioner Faure. I was involved in voting for many of those bonds, and I agree that there are times to bond. But we now have a $74 million building over there. And frankly, it's probably worth $74 million today. So I'm not even saying that was bad. I just wanted you to be very aware that there's an expense to what we do. And I wanted to go over that today. So, John, thank you very much for your
Thanks for the
presentation.
invitation.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Next item on our agenda are the consent items. Item G1 is approval for warrants 2282 through 2313 and 445876 through 446070 in the amount of $1,883,000 and change. Also, 446071 in the amount of $7,000 and 2314 through 2328 and 446072 through 446261 in the amount of $371,835. Number 2 is request for approval of warrants 2329 through 2343 and 446262 through 446374 in the amount of $2,345,286. Item 3 is request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $80,903 in 2019, and in 2020, $675,921. Item 4 is request for approval of the minutes of our previous meeting, December 17th. Item 5 is, that's of 2019. Item 5 is request for approval of new beer licenses. Item 6 is request for Golden Spike Event Center and ice sheet for approval of two surplus. An FD 410 credit card processor. Item 5 is a request for approval of an amendment to the Little Mountain Solar Development Agreement. And item 8 is a request for approval to ratify of a contract by and between Weber County and the Egyptian Theater Foundation regarding the use of grant funds. Now, Commissioners, I've had a chance to go down and go through these. I had 2 questions. They were, there was $104,495,000 in there for a capital expense, and it didn't explain what it was. So it turns out it was for the archery building. It's payment on that archery building. And the other one was for $183,000.
Which were pass-through funds.
No, it was not passed through.
Yeah, they were money that we got from the GOED, the initial grant of the GOED. Isn't that correct, Marty?
No, listen to me.
Okay.
This was $183,000. That this is the payment for that lift, that boom. Right. So that's what I got out of that. So, Lynn, do you want to go through this?
Thank you, Commissioner. This will cover the past several weeks since we were off for the holidays. I'll just summarize all those that were more than 10% of the total. For 2019 purchase orders, there were 21 totaling 81,000. 41%, or almost 33,000, went to the conference center for food, labor, and entertainment. 24%, or 19,000, to the sheriff's office for uniforms, equipment, and EMT books. POs for 2020, there were 94 totaling 676,000. 34%, or 233,000, went to roads for equipment, supplies, and temporary labor. 25%, or 172,000, to the library for books, materials, building and equipment maintenance and repairs. 16%, or 108,000, for paramedic cabin chassis vehicles. 13%, or 87,000, to the transfer station for parts, supplies, equipment, maintenance, fuel, and EPA testing. For the week of December 20th, 2019, 227 checks totaling $1.9 million. Largest of these, 12%, or $222,000, to corridor preservation, 17th Street in Ogden, and 11%, or $200,000, for paramedic services monthly contribution. For the week of December 27th, 203 checks for a total of $372,000. 29%, or $109,000, to Weber Housing Authority for housing payments. 23%, or $85,000, to 911 dispatch for equipment maintenance, fire station notification systems, etc. And finally, January 3rd, 2020, 128 checks totaling $2.3 million. The overwhelming majority of that, 75%, or $1.8 million, to Utah County's indemnity pool, insurance, and workers' compensation premiums.
Very good. Questions, Commissioners?
No, I'm good.
I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent items under G 1 through 8 on our agenda.
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Very good, that passes. All right, we go to our action items. Very first item today is appointment of a chair for this year coming. We have traditionally passed this around. It keeps everybody happy on this chair, and it's, I tell you, I've seen it both ways. I've seen it not pass, and I've seen it pass, and I highly recommend this chairmanship being passed around. It's not a ton more work, but it is more work, but it allows everybody to share in the work, and it keeps us getting along. So with that, I'd make a motion today that we appoint Commissioner Frohr, the new chair for the commission as of right now, this minute, to the first meeting in 2021.
Second.
Comments on that? Will you take it?
I'll take it.
Okay, there we go.
Be a team player.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes.
Vice Chair.
Oh, we better do the vice chair too. So I'd make also a motion that we appoint Commissioner Harvey as vice chair of this commission for the same period of time.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Let's move.
I think I'm comfortable right here. No. Yeah, like this.
It looks like the vice chair's position.
All right, let me just take a personal privilege here for a minute or two. I might, again, this has been an exciting past 12 months. I've learned a great deal about county government in the last 12 months. I feel that the work that we've done as a commission has been something that at least I'm proud of, and I think my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Jenkins has done a fantastic job of working as hard, making sure that the issues that needed to be addressed as a county were addressed. Some of those have not been easy issues. And I think that is really what our charge is as a commission, as public officials, is that we need to make those hard decisions, like it or not. I appreciate some commissions in the past But what we've seen is sometimes it's a lot easier to pass up a decision and put that off to future commission or hope that it'll go away. I'm here to tell you they usually don't go away. They usually become bigger issues if they're ignored. And I appreciate my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Harvey, with his experience in the past, has been a great leader for this community. He has the expertise in his portfolio that I tell you is above comprehension in my mind. He covers a lot of territory, a lot of people, and I appreciate what you do. Commissioner Jenkins likewise has taken on some huge issues with IGP, with the landfill, some of these areas that are not real apparent to members of the public, yet very apparent when it comes time to tax time, is something that I appreciate from Commissioner Jenkins and his ability to chair this commission the past 12 months. One remembrance I have of the legislature is every morning I walked into the House chambers, and just above the speaker's podium was a plaque, Vol Populi, Voice of the People. That's something I saw every morning. I respected that. I still do to this day. I think every public official needs to take that to heart. It's not about us at this podium. It's about the people, listening to the people and making those right decisions. And a lot of times, commissioners, you know, they're hard decisions. But I appreciate your work of 2019. 2020, I promise you, will be probably just as difficult. We're going to run hard. If 2019 was a marathon, I'm going to say 2020 is probably going to be a Spartan race. And I think I want to challenge each of the two.
When you say running, yeah.
And Commissioner Harvey, you know, he feels that point very well. So with that, Commissioners, any comments before we move on to the agenda?
None.
Happy to support you. Gage has been wonderful to work with over the last year. Learned a lot, and he's moved our economic development and now what will be workforce development, so we can have the people to fill those jobs in. So most of the national articles are pointing to northern Utah and the success that we're having here. So we're really lucky. And what that means is, as Scott Parker, our comptroller, said, is there's absolutely no reason for there to be any tax increases over the next 5 years. In fact, we'll continue like we did in the 2000, just 2 months ago, lowering taxes for most. So,
Which is a
that's
good
the right
thing
direction.
Yeah, we're growing the economy, broaden the base, lower the rates, right? Which is a good thing. Okay, with that, Commissioners, I'm going to move to the agenda item 2, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and the American Chariot Racing, Inc. to hold the 2019-2020 season chariot races at the Golden Spike Event Center. Mr. Duncan Olson, time's yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an exciting day. We're excited to bring the chariots back. We've actually had a couple races, but they fell within our normal contract because we were trying to negotiate and make sure that we were doing our due diligence and they were doing theirs. And so this is pretty much a contract of us sponsoring them in trade for use of the track and stuff. Pretty straightforward.
Questions? Ready for a motion?
Motion to approve.
Section, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you.
Let's move on to request for approval of a resolution of the County Commission of Weber County appointing members to the Weber County Tourism Tax Advisory Board. Stacy Skeen.
Good morning. The Tourism Tax Advisory Board met last month. They have two of their members who are currently serving, Steve Ballard and Lisa Fuller, whose term expired December of 2019, and the board is recommending that they be reappointed for another 4 years.
Thank you. Questions?
You know, we serve with both of them, and they're good people. I have no problems with them.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Harvey. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
It's a resolution.
Resolution.
Oh, resolution, sorry. Resolution 1.
Okay.
Commissioner Harvey,
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins,
Aye.
and I'm getting confused, Chair Faur.
Aye, thank you.
Point of information or point of clarification, Fatima? It's resolution number 65, is that correct?
Did I give you the wrong? I think it's the first one of the year, so it's number 1.
Resolution 1.
I'll make the correction, thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to agenda item 4, request for approval of contract by and between Weber County and Kelly Madsen for the Indigent Defense Investigator. Mr. Barron.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you know, the county has an obligation under the Indigent Defense Act to provide defense counsel and defense resources to indigent defendants here in Weber County. So the next 4 agenda items all deal with different aspects of that obligation. This first one is a contract with Kelly Madsen to be hired on as an investigator. In the past, we've had a single investigator who worked for a flat fee and just performed all the investigative work that was needed for our defense attorneys. We've decided to switch it up and hire 2 investigators who will work for an hourly rate of $60 an hour. And that'll resolve some issues that we were having with conflicts between co-defendants, also conflicts between appellate counsel and trial counsel where they've needed 2 different investigators. Kelly Madsen, I'm really impressed with her. She's got over 20 years experience, and she's also giving us a great discount. She normally charges over $90 an hour, and she's only charging us $60. So it'll be good to work with her.
Good. Is that it, Mr. Barron?
Yeah, any questions on this one?
Questions?
No, my portfolio, I've met with Mr. Barron on this, and it's my recommendation. In fact, I'll make that in the form of a motion that we approve the contract by and between Weber County and Kelly Madsen for the Indigent Defense Investigator.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next agenda item would be request for approval of contract by and between Weber County and between Emily Adams, Sharice Bikalski, and Freha Johnson for the Indigent Defense Attorneys. Mr. Barron, back to you.
So this is our contract for appellate work for indigent defendants. And Emily Adams and Sharice Bikalski have been working with us for the past couple of years. They've done a fantastic job. When we put this out for a request for proposals, they were by far the most qualified attorneys who applied. And they're also bringing in Freja Johnson, who is a new attorney, but she's been doing this for a couple of years and looks very promising as well.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioners?
Motion to approve?
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next agenda item, request for approval of contracts by and between the following individuals for the indigent attorneys in juvenile court. Richard T. Williams, Jennifer Clark, Jonathan Pace, Eamon Nelson, Rebecca Voimas, Mary Ann Ellis, and Andrew Hayward. Mr. Barron.
So these are the same attorneys who have been working with the county for the past several years. We did have others who applied, but by far the attorneys that we have currently under contract were the most qualified. And so we decided to renew those contracts with them.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Barron?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion. Have a second. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, we got 7. Request for approval of contracts by and between Weber County and the following individuals for indigent defense attorneys in district court. The last one was juvenile court. The following people: Marvin Gravis, James Ritalik, Randall Marshall, Jason R. Whittison, Sean Condy, and Michael Bowis. Mr. Barron, back to you again.
All right, and these are also the same individuals who have worked for the county for the past several years, all very qualified and all scored significantly higher than other applicants. So we're pleased that they're coming back to work for the county for the next 5 years.
So are these all attorneys that have been prior attorneys with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are. No changes here.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
So I would like to comment, just so those folks sitting here today understand. I've had several people call me lately and say, you know, I don't see where I get any services from the county. Well, we just approved 4 sets of contracts, probably worth millions of dollars, that you watched, that is for indigent defense. So these are people who can't afford their own defense, and we have to pay for it as a group, all of us, as taxpayers. And I just wanted to make sure you understood that that's part of what your taxes go for.
Good point, Commissioner. All right, we have no questions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Agenda item 8, request for approval of an interlocal agreement by and between Weber County and Far West City for animal control services. We have here Chad Everett. Please come forward. Time's yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here with the Animal Shelter Director, Chad Everett. We're here to present the interlocal agreement. It's a renewal between Far West for animal control services. This is a renewal. There's no changes to the current agreement, and it's just covering the implementation and enforcement of animal control services, dog licensing, fees collected, and the cost incurred by the cities and how they pay for those costs. The agreement is for 5 years through July 1st, 2024, and can be extended year by year after that with a termination agreement of 90 days written notice by either party. Is there any questions?
Questions on the animal control? I had one. You wouldn't, we had some issues previously in the year, prior in the year, about some issues at the Animal Control Center. Those appear like, to me at least, and what I've heard, have been resolved. Can you give us a little insight, since you're here, on the issues that were talked about and what correction items have been taken?
Do you want to cover that?
Yeah, I was hired on just recently. I am
Right.
Chad Averett. This is not Chad Averett.
Yeah, you're not
It's Chief
Chad.
Roundy.
We should have had you introduce yourself.
This is my first time doing this, so he's kind of being my mentor for this. But yes, there were some issues that have been addressed. One was a roof that needed to be repaired. We got that approved, and it has been done and accomplished. There's some issues that we're still working on with the heating and cooling system. I know it was an issue back in the summer of last year. That has been addressed, and we are working on that currently. With those issues. Also staffing, that's been addressed as well, and we're currently, I'm glad to say, we're up to staffing levels for it at the moment. That can always change, but we are doing really well over there. The perception of the public, I think, has been greatly uplifted. It's got a good eye on it, and I know there's a lot of hope in the future for the facility, and I'm looking forward to managing it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. That's not an easy job, as we all know. Sheriff's Department, you've done a great job in making sure that the issues that were out there have been transparent, the public's been involved, and they've been taken care of. Thank you very much. Comments?
Mr. Chair, I've had 2 calls actually regarding Mr. Averett and your management going on out there, and I appreciate what you've done. That's a good indication of where we're headed, and I appreciate the work you've done already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments, questions?
Commissioner, I'd just like to say that I also know that Chad comes from an animal control background, and I personally know that he's been out riding personally with his animal control officers, evaluating what their challenges are and their challenges they're facing, and he's come up with a lot of great solutions. So we're very excited to have him over the animal shelter.
Yeah, we are as well. Appreciate the professionalism you bring to that endeavor. Thank you very much. Questions, commissioners?
Then I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, if you're ready to accept.
I'm ready to go with a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the interlocal between Weber County and Far West for animal control services. Or, yeah, Far West is this one?
Far West is this one. Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. You're still up. We're talking about now request for approval of the interlocal agreement between Weber County and Plain City for the same type of services, I'm assuming.
Yes, Commissioner. The contracts are nearly identical. There's one differentiation, and that is the termination agreement is 180 days written notice versus 90 days.
Thank you. Is that the only difference?
Yes.
Thank you. Questions, commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Have a
Second.
motion to approve. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 10, request for approval of a memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and the U.S. Forest Service, allowing both entities to continue working together to provide enhanced communication, community support, natural resource management, protection, public involvement, safety, and sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of our local county and national forest. That's a mouthful, Sean. You gonna be able to accomplish all that?
That's why I have Sean Harwood here with me.
Wow, that's a big job. I'm glad I don't have to do that. Sean,
Commissioners,
time's yours.
Thank you. This is just a memorandum of understanding that allows us to work closely with the Forest Service and is kind of the baseline for future specific agreements on projects that we may have. This is a similar agreement that the Forest Service has with many other counties and other entities. And we appreciate the cooperation and collaboration that we have had over the last little while as we've worked on some projects, and we look forward to many more. Any
Mr. Harwood.
That's the Sean team.
Yeah, we got the Sean show going here. But
Gentlemen, Happy New Year. Yes, Sean summed it up really well. It's what the Forest Service does to document the working with other agencies, state and federal and local and county governments. So it's just the MOU. It's what all of our other decisions and projects will tier off of, and there's no exchange of funds or anything else. It's just a binding kind of how we play together and use our communication.
very good. Questions? Commissioner Harvey.
Mr. Chair, in the 3 years I've had working here, I've had several calls as it relates to governmental agencies, whether it's cities, counties, federal agencies, state agencies working together. I'm going to tell you that never have we had a county Forest Service relationship better than we enjoy now, and I believe it's directly related to you, Mr. Harwood. You're a great advocate for our area. Growing up here, you understand it. You put your spare time, your extra time, your discretionary time into your service and your job. You really care and love our community. I respect the heck out of you. You're a great man, and I appreciate the efforts you've made to make it easier for us to manage the county because of what you do. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Comments? Commissioner Jenkins.
Yes, I would like to echo that, Sean. You've been tremendous to work with. We really appreciate you and all you've done for the county. Weber County has benefited in major ways because of your willingness to work with us, and we greatly appreciate you very much. And so with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
We have a motion.
Second?
I have a second. Before I place the motion, Sean, I just wanted to also tell you thanks. Pineview, your major asset that impacts a lot of people from Weber County, is in my backyard, as you know. Significant difference in just the last 12 months that I've seen from management of that asset. I actually received notification we'll receive a check this year, some money, from the fees of the people that were using that facility for the first time ever, that we'll actually have some money. And for the people sitting here in the audience today, you need to know that that money will be put back into that asset around Pineview, whether that's parking or structures, whatever that may be. That money goes directly back in, created by the people that use it. And I think everybody's heard me say this before, but I'm very much in favor of user fees. And this is a time for user fees in Weber County, and that the people that use it should pay for it.
A comment?
Go ahead.
This memorandum of understanding is the vehicle that allows us to share those funds and put it back into Pineview.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Wilkinson?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a motion. We had a second. I'm going to place the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11, request for approval of contract by and between Weber County and the Utah Department of Transportation for statewide utility license agreement. Mr. Myers.
Good morning, Commissioners. Have for your approval today statewide utility license agreement that I'm looking for your approval. This will take place between UDOT and us. This allows our facilities to reside anywhere that they may exist within state right-of-ways. anywhere that our drainage facilities tie in with theirs. Any questions you might have on this?
Questions, commissioners? I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve is presented.
We have a motion and a second.
A second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Myers, you're up again. Request for approval of contract between Weber County and Marriott Construction for 1800 South storm drain.
Correct. So through the course of development taking place, it was discovered that our storm drain infrastructure that exists out on 1800 South was quite aged, a little bit dilapidated, and definitely in need of some repair and upgrade. What I have for you for your approval today is approval on a contract with Marriott Construction to perform that work to install that pipe for us.
As I understand, he was the low bidder.
He was the low bidder. We requested bids from multiple different contractors. We did receive 3 bids back. Marriott Construction was the low bidder of the 3 bids.
Thank you for that explanation. Commissioners, questions?
I'd make a motion we approve that contract.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thanks,
Motion
gentlemen.
carries. Okay, moving on to the exciting part of our agenda, a public hearing. I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we close this meeting and reconvene in a public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn our commission meeting and reconvene as a public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. We're now in a public hearing. Well, we're going to move on to Mr. Steve Burton. This is a public hearing to consider and take action on a request to amend Weber County zone map to rezone approximately 4.59 acres from RE15 zone to R110 at approximal address 6224 South, 2225 East in Ogden. Mr. Burton, the time's yours.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
As was mentioned, this is a public hearing for a rezone request. This application was submitted in November of 2019 and went to the Planning Commission on December 10th of 2019. Let me give you the Planning Commission recommendation, and then I'll run through a few things with you if you're okay with that.
Go ahead.
So on December 10th, 2019, the Western Weber Planning Commission made a recommendation that the County Commission deny the proposed rezone. The Planning Commission stated that the recommendation for denial was based on the following finding: that the area surrounding the proposed rezone was not developed in accordance with the general plan, and that the development pattern of the surrounding area is RE15, which is very low density according to the general plan. Although the proposal is consistent with the wording of the general plan, the proposal is not consistent with the surrounding area. That was the finding made by the Planning Commission. It was a unanimous vote to recommend denial to you. So just to go over a few things, the proposal is to change the zone on about 4.5 acres, so it's there just in near the South Ogden, Uinta area, from RE15 zoning to R110 zoning. To give you an idea of those uses, they're actually very compatible uses. So we're talking about a difference of 5,000 square feet in lot size, in the lot size requirement. We're also talking about the difference of about 20 feet in the width requirement along a street. Setbacks are a little bit different as well. As far as uses go, we're talking, it says that agriculture is a permitted use in both of these zones, which I don't know how that would happen on such small lots. It also says that cluster subdivisions are also allowed in both zones. Home occupation, household pets, residential, residential facility for elderly persons, single-family dwellings, cemeteries, churches, so your basic residential use. Very similar. The R110 zone doesn't allow for some of the agricultural uses like some of the livestock and horses and things like that the RE15 zone allows for.
Hold on a second. Commissioner Jenkins?
So, Steve, as I look at, can you go to the previous 2 slides?
Sure. These are
Keep going. Right, this slide.
Right there?
Whoop. that one, and then the next one. No, I thought you had both of those subdivision. Well, okay, go back to the subdivision slide. So, as an R110, I know you listed the differences of the zone and what it would allow, but the reality of it is the depth is exactly the same on all the lots. So really what we're talking about is changing the lot sizes from 100 foot to 80 foot. And that's the reality of it. Other than that, the lots are pretty much the same size, just by the configuration of it. And they're 20 feet narrower.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Talking 5,000 square feet
Right.
area difference. And then I've also got a few things on here. As part of a rezone application, the applicant is required to submit a kind of a conceptual development plan, which is what this subdivision is that you're looking at. The applicant also, just as some concepts, submitted some of the homes that might be built in the area. When it comes to rezones, as your planning staff, we look at the general plan. The general plan for this area was created back in, I think, 1972, so it definitely needs an update. But as we looked at the general plan, it said that this area should be what's called low density. And low density, according to the general plan, is 8 units to the acre. What's being proposed here is 4 units to the acre. So as planning staff, we've made our findings that since this proposal is that it is consistent with the general plan and that it is compatible with the surrounding area, we've made a recommendation that you approve the proposal. Now, the applicant is here, and I'm assuming you'd like to hear from him as well. Do you have any questions from me?
Questions, commissioners?
I do have a
Go ahead,
question there.
Commissioner Jenkins.
I'm not quite sure I understood what you just said about low density and or higher density. Would you explain that to me
I sure
again?
can. So the general plan, I'll read it from you from the general plan. This is a map of the future land. This is the general plan map. It says what how future development should be zoned. The area that we've highlighted here is what's called low density. According to the general plan, let me read you what low density is. It says the low density classification consists of those uses which exist in R1, R2, and R3 or single family and duplex structures. The density for this classification provides for 3 to 8 dwelling units per net residential acre. So Commissioner Jenkins, that's what I was referring to, and I said the general plan says low density means 8 units to the acre.
Very good. So,
and this is proposal at 4?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
so your point is the request is consistent with the plan as exists today.
Correct. It's consistent with the general plan. It's compatible with the proposed, or excuse me, with the existing development out there, and it's based on sound planning principles.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Steve? So, question for you, Steve, is you've stated that this obviously is consistent with the general plan, and you also, I think, made the statement it's consistent with the neighborhood. Why did the Planning Commission, and maybe somebody from the Planning Commission can explain it to me, why did they think it was inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhood? What was the reasoning behind that?
I don't know why. That was part of their recommendation to you, is that they felt that it was not compatible with the surrounding area. But I can't explain why to you. I apologize.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'd like to maybe hear that, but Rick, Mr. Grover, would you like to weigh in on that?
Some of the dialogue that they had was they looked at the area, and the majority of that area has been built out. And it was built out as what is currently zoned. And so these small parcels that are there, they felt that this is not consistent with what has been built out in that area. And so even though the general plan allows for it, they looked at how it's been built out, and they feel that because it's been built out as the existing zone, that it's not appropriate to come in and change that. But again, the general plan is what we typically go off of.
Thank you. Mr. Burt, does that conclude your presentation?
It does, yeah. And I believe the applicant has a few images they would like to show you as they present to you.
Okay, thank you. We have somebody representing the Moore Group here. We're going to hear from you first. Please come forward. If you wouldn't mind stating your name.
Absolutely. Randy Moore. And Commissioners, Happy New Year. Good morning. I have some papers for you. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'm Randy Moore. This is Taylor Moore. He is my son. He's a little bigger than me, but younger, better looking most likely. But he has a sheet that we'd like to pass out. Anybody that would like a copy, we should have plenty available. Commissioners, in making this application and researching what would be appropriate for this particular property and developing the property, I went back and researched the approval of, thank you. I went back and researched the approval of other surrounding zones and what had happened over the past few years. I found that there were other properties that were zoned R110, the majority of the area being zoned R115, and some areas being zoned R2. I went back and read the staff reports and the minutes of the approvals of these different parcels. For example, the Eastwood Drive property that was rezoned approximately a year ago. This property was rezoned from the RE15 to R110, the same application and request that we're making. The Planning Commission and staff approved that zone change. You know, it's interesting in what was just said about the reasons for the Planning Commission, because when I go back and look at the minutes of the Planning Commission approval on that property, the first reason was, there were three reasons they stated for approval. First one, the Southeast Area Master Plan recommends the use of densities of the R110 zone. Number two, the proposed rezone will promote the health, safety, general welfare by offering more affordable lot sizes than the surrounding zone. Number three, the surrounding land does not pose a conflict with the proposed zone, and the new uses of the proposed zone are anticipated to fit into the area harmoniously. So when I just heard the conditions, or what the concerns were with the Planning Commission, from 1 year ago, these applications are 2 blocks apart, but what they're stating is very different. In the other application of the Eastwood property, not one person came to that Planning Commission meeting to speak in favor or against. And then when the item came to for your approval, one person came in opposition and 2 people came in support of that, and then you as the county commissioners approved that unanimously. So in making our application, I looked at this R110 zone as something that would be fully appropriate, and we moved ahead with that. I, to say the least, was very surprised at the Planning Commission meeting by the concerns of so many and the concerns of the residents. And really after that meeting, I contemplated and thought, what are the differences? What is at play here? We're talking 1 year apart, we're talking 2 blocks apart. I came up with 2 main issues in my mind, as to the concerns with our application. First issue being, I believe, some concerns as to what the zone change actually means to the property. So I also believe we did a poor job in presenting what this zone change will actually make for the property and for the eventual homes that will be built there. So let me see if I can change this. Is it the will or? Oh, just move to the mix. He's going to be my tech advisor.
Which one do you want?
Go to the overall, or the one from the architect. There we go. So, since the meeting from the Planning Commission, we had our architect prepare this plan, which is the colored layout that I've given each of you and we've given to the residents. As far as our application, the only decision that is going to be made here today is if it stays in the RE15 zone, there will be 10 lots. If it is rezoned to the R110 zone, there will be 12 or 13 lots. That is the only difference, that is the only change, that is the only decision that is being made. In some applications for rezoning, misunderstandings can come about as to how a property rezone will actually affect the homes that will be built. We requested a change from an RE15 to an R110. To many residents, these are terms that may not be clear as to what that will actually mean for the homes. I realize now that this could have been perceived as a significant change to the area or a significant change to the rezone, and I apologize for that misunderstanding. I hope that this layout will clarify that. What we've done is we've taken and tried to show the lots with the homes, conceptual homes, and this is all conceptual at this point. It's rezoned. We're trying to do our best to present it. Eventually, we're going to have a subdivision application and have to come back and clarify some of the subdivision issues. But in my mind, I thought that maybe isn't being made clear in these terms with the actual zonings. As you look at the different homes on the lots, all of the homes, there is no issue in terms of the size of the lots with the rezone and the homes that will be built. There are absolutely no problems building on any of these lots with very nice, custom, high-quality homes. As you can see as you go around, all of the lots will accommodate a 3-car garage. The front and rear yards are very large. The conceptual plans on here range from 1,500 to 2,100 square feet, but certainly the homes can be larger and most likely will be larger by going deeper with the home. We anticipate the homes being in the $550,000 to $650,000 price range, and some of the homes up approaching $700,000. These will be comparable or exceed the new homes currently being built on the Eastwood Drive property, which interestingly enough is in the R110 zone. Most buyers look to the total end price of the home. This small change will shift approximately $30,000 to $40,000 of the lot value in what we see in most cases buyers spending in the home. The price of the home with this lot change typically doesn't change, but it shifts that value from the lot size to where buyers can spend it on garages, finished basements, larger, more square footage, and those other amenities. This change is desirable for two types of buyers. The empty nester buyer that has lived in their home for a period of time may be individuals that are here. They want a new, high-quality home with larger living areas, possibly moving from a 2-story to a rambler, have larger family rooms, updated kitchens, bathrooms, want more garage space, higher quality finishes. That's the one buyer that we're looking for. The other buyer are younger buyers. Younger buyers have moved towards smaller lots. They don't want the maintenance. These are not small lots in either zone. The proposed lots average almost 13,000 square feet. When you have a property, each property, just because we have a certain zone, say the R110, depending on the widths and the layout in the streets, it's going to affect the size of those lots. And actually, the larger the property, many times you come closer to what that zone is. In this case, even moving to the R110 zone, our lots average 13,000 square feet, or 0.3 acres. The R115 zone, which I've given, Commissioners, I've given you a copy of that. You were looking for that earlier. If we were to stay in the RE15 zone, the lots would average 16,000 square feet. The difference between both these is 3,000 square feet on average of lots. Not all of the lots are affected. If you look at the layout, the lots kind of in the middle would be the narrower lots. The lots on the cul-de-sac and on the front are still going to be wider. So what this really does is it gives a mix of some narrower homes, and then I think in the end of the cul-de-sac and on the corners would be a more traditional home. How does this impact the existing homes? I don't see that it does. I don't see a way that this affects the existing homes. Whether we're in the RE15 or the R110, there are going to be 2 lots on the corner coming in. The only lots it affects in any way are the lots in the new cul-de-sac. There will be 12 to 13, there will be 2 to 3 more lots in that cul-de-sac. And it will only affect those buyers who are fully aware of it, and that's what they're looking, that's what they desire. There were concerns about the master plan with the Planning Commission. I think I've addressed those, the staff addressed those. The master plan is 3 to 8 units. In theory, from our plan, there could be twice as many units in there and still meet the master plan. It could approach 8, we're at 4. We plan on building high-quality homes that we see will add very nicely to a very nice custom home area. The homeowners in this area clearly take pride of ownership in their homes. We don't want to diminish from that in any way. I have learned a lot of the concern of the neighbors after the last meeting. In some areas, residents don't get involved or take concern. That is certainly not the case here, and that's an area, a neighborhood that we want to be a part of. So the first issue, I think, was confusion over the rezone and what it actually means for the end product. I appreciate the opportunity to hopefully clarify that and to stress again, it makes a difference from 10 to 12 to 13 lots. The second issue, I said there were 2 issues in the Planning Commission. The second issue, I believe, is the current use of the land as an LDS park. After the meeting, this became very clear to me, and I now see the strong emotions of the residents concerning the park. The park has been a part of the neighborhood for many years. It appears that it may have been planned or perceived to have a chapel on the site one day. I heard rumors that the land may have been donated for this use. Many of you have walked and used the park for a number of years. I apologize for not being more sensitive to this and at least acknowledging the change of the park. If this was a park that was near me and I had used to walk my dog and to use for my family for years, I would be concerned about the change. I don't believe that anyone here was involved in the decision to sell this property, including myself. I did not make that decision, but the decision has been made for whatever reasons. The county does not seem to be in a position to keep it as a park, and the land will be sold. I am sorry for the loss of the park, and we will do our best to build a nice development and homes that will further add to the quality of the neighborhood. In closing, I want to reiterate this makes a difference of 2 to 3 lots. I don't believe that was made clear. The staff recommended approval. The Planning Commission did not. Why would you go against the Planning Commission? I think I think one of the main reasons is we just did not really make an adequate, whether it was myself, whether it was staff, what it was, we really did not make an adequate representation as to what the end product would be and how that zone change would affect, which is the 2 to 3 lots. Commissioner, you talked about listening to the people. And at the last meeting, there was a lot of people that had strong emotions. But one thought hit me after that meeting, and that is we have 13 new homeowners that want to move into this area. They want to buy a home that has a little smaller lot, that it maybe is an empty nester home. We talk about affordable housing. This isn't by any means an affordable housing development, but it's a small move in that direction. But my question is, I think if those 13 new homeowners were to come here and to come to this microphone and say, this is why I want that lot, this is why I want to be in that area, I think that the emotions would change. And I have to be the voice for them, and I think as commissioners, you have to be the voice for them. So thank you very much for allowing me to explain. I'd be happy to answer any questions and address any questions of any residents.
Thank you for that. Questions, Commissioners?
Not at this time for the developer.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, so we will now go to public comment from members of the public. We're going to ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or under. We do give bonus points for being expedient, so please keep that in mind. And as a last reminder, make sure you state your name and address, and please do not repeat the same comments that were made previously. If you have new comments, that's great. We would love to hear from you. If you're going to stand up and repeat what your neighbor just said, it probably is not going to do you a lot of good. So use your time effectively. I'm going to take a look at the clock. I'm not going to allow any public outburst for those that have been in my meeting rooms before. This is not a time to be boisterous, or applause will not be allowed. If that happens, I will shut this meeting down and we'll make a decision at some time in the future. So be aware of that. Be courteous, be respectful to your neighbors, be respectful to the people that are here today. With that, please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Gene Robert Babelis, 6232 Woodland Drive, just up the street. Kind of unique in that area. I've lived up there for 40 years, owned 3 homes. My kids have 5 homes up there. My daughter happens to be building in that little subdivision on Eastwood. She has a home almost completed in there, the new one, 0.3 acres. And it is a mistake. They're putting a $600,000 home in there, and you're staring at your neighbor. You can't even, you can't, it's a mess. So all we're saying is you made a mistake by allowing that 0.3 acres, and more people should have shown up. I didn't show up because I didn't know about it. And the same thing over there in the cul-de-sac. You allowed 4 homes to go in there at 0.3 acres, and they stare at each other. In fact, we can watch them have dinner as we're going back and forth. So those have been problems, and that's up to you guys to make it happen. The spirit in the area, I can tell you what happened. Kay Kendall donated this money to the LDS Church, or this property. He did the development on the side, did restrictive covenants over there, wanted to have homes, or bigger lots. Our law office did the work. He donated to the church, expected it to be an area to keep kind of a park for everybody to have up there. So them going in and doing this is, it's going to happen. The LDS Church is selling the property. It's going to happen. But the staff made a recommendation. They're employees. They live everywhere. Your zoning and planning commission made recommendations. They're neighbors. They live up there. They said, no, it's not in the spirit of what the subdivisions are up there. It needs to be a little bigger area. It's not much. It doesn't mean much to the developer. He just said it's only 2 or 3 more lots. It's not going to make any difference. But it stays with all of the area around it. All the homes around the other side are all R15. So it needs to stay there. And so I just think that stay in the spirit of the subdivisions of the area, the spirit of the area. When South Ogden tried to put us in an annex zone, just saying, someday we want to annex you guys up in our area up there, it was a mass run to South Ogden, say, take us off your annex potential zone area, because no one wants to have, we don't want curb and gutter, we don't want sidewalks. We wanted to keep the rural setting up there. And so I just did a little development up there at the pond. And we went in, and nobody went in. We could have gone in and asked for 0.3 acreage. We didn't. It's not the spirit of what's up there. I've got 1.2 acres and 1.4 acres and 1.7 acres on the lots we did. It makes less money for the developer, but it stays with the spirit of subdivisions up there. And that's what we're asking you to do. You represent us. We live up there. We're asking you to stay that way. I think you can take a vote here and see if you're going to be in favor of that development being smaller or bigger, and you'll see the numbers. Thanks.
Next comment.
James Beck, 6193 South, 2175 East. I live just a half block away from the park. I'd like to quote comments from Mr. Burton's staff report to the Planning Commission, and I guess to this commission here too. In that report, he says, even though the proposed rezone creates an island of one zone surrounded by another, this is not considered spot zoning because the general plan requests this type of zoning density in the area. Thus, this request is anticipated and recommended for not just the subject property, but also for adjacent properties. I would suggest to you that that statement is absurd. Regardless of what the general plan anticipated, this higher density zoning is not what has actually occurred. The notion that the adjacent lots are going to somehow magically come into compliance with the higher density zoning so that at some time in the future it will no longer be a spot zone is pure fantasy. The adjacent property owners spoke loud and clear at the Planning Commission hearing, and they have no intention of changing their property boundaries. Quote again from the staff report, the R15 zone and the R10 zone are similar enough in nature to not create significant concern regarding conflicting uses. As Mr. Burton knows, because he was at the Planning Commission, it has caused significant concern for the very homeowners who will be impacted. Quote again, over time, the general plan anticipates that future decisions will change surrounding R15 zoning to R10 zoning or other similar zone. That's the actual problem. It creates a precedent, which we don't want to create any more than the one small parcel that has done that. Again, Mr. Burton suggests that over time the adjacent properties will be changed to allow for more homes to be built on what is now their property. I don't know how that's possible that could ever happen. Quote again, there's another R10 zone approximately 1,300 feet to the north of the subject property, so it can be observed that the proposed zone is not inconsistent with zones in the area. This property that was mentioned by the developer is very much different. First of all, it's an isolated piece of property with an exception to the general zoning of Uinta Highlands, and it's very different in that it has a major thoroughfare running through it, and it's not surrounded by other residents on all sides. And one more comment. If the difference between this zone and our current zone is so insignificant, then why is it that the developer thinks it's so important to change the zoning? Secondly, I've heard two conflicting statements here. The staff report said that one of the reasons for this rezoning was so they could put lower priced homes on the property. And yet, the developer is saying they're not going to put lower priced homes on the property. Which is it? I don't think there's any advantage whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Wickern. I live at 6261 South, 2125 East, a couple cul-de-sacs away from the development. A couple of points I wanted to bring up. First is to what Commissioner Jenkins said. I think he was right on in saying that the main difference I think that we're dealing with in this community is going from 100 feet of street frontage to 80 feet of street frontage. Now, I live in a pretty broad cul-de-sac because of the planning that went into that cul-de-sac. And parking does tend to be a problem in cul-de-sacs. So this current layout, I can't see that there would be sufficient parking for the people that be visiting these homes. So when you're looking at a difference of just a few lots, you're also looking at a lot of difference in street frontage, and that's probably the main difference between this and the Eastwood properties. Second concern of mine, well, and I guess, and you could answer this, but rezoning this property doesn't commit them to this layout. It allows the developer to do anything within the new zoning requirements. Now, I appreciate the developer's comments. I think he's spoken well to our concerns. But in Magna, they put 28 homes on 5.1 acres. And I don't know that there is anything that would restrict them from doing that if it was rezoned. And that is a concern. I'm also the community council president at Uinta Elementary. And overcrowding at Uinta is a big issue. Now, I'm excited that Weber County may be able to lower their taxes, but we have been unable to get the community on board to raise property taxes to allow us to get the money we need for our schools. So the state, the state and federal funding comes for our students, but locally we need about $2,500 per student in those schools, and even at $500,000. We're not going to get anything close to that. We'll get, at $500,000, we'll get maybe $1,300 a home going to schools. And those homes are going to bring in more students than one, and that's barely half of what we need for one student. So I mean, maybe it's 2 or 3 homes that are less right there, but that's a half a dozen students that won't be flooding into our school, where in the community that right now is not supporting the money we need for our students. So that's all I have to give you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Wait for my time clock. Chairman Ford, Commissioner Harvey, and Commissioner Jenkins. My name is Angela Stander-Ito. First off, I want to thank you for supporting us in wanting a park, for making government move incredibly fast to make the bid on the land for a park. We know you didn't have to do this for us, so thank you. We lost our attempt for a park. It was a huge loss for all of us, and as a consolation, please do not let us lose on the rezone. It would simply be salt in the wound for losing a piece of land that all of us here love so much. I grew up on that beautiful mountainside, and we have survived a devastating fire 2 years back, but we won't survive the continued overdevelopment that is taking place. The effect of overdevelopment on our community is proving to be just as damaging as the fire was. We came together then, and we are coming together now. Please hear us that we don't want it. As much as I'd love no growth, I know that it must happen, but there must be a balance of who has to burden the growth. There are two areas that Mr. Moore mentioned where our community had very little power. We did not feel we could stand up. Most of us did not hear about those meetings. I think because this land meant so much to us as a park that we finally feel we can come together and maybe do something about the overdevelopment. We also are surrounded by South Ogden City. Large townhomes, amounts of townhomes and apartments came in. We've shouldered that we had no control over as well. We have shouldered the burden of the need for high-density housing. And we have endured the high-density housing around us, so now the balance comes in protecting us. We are unincorporated Weber County. We do not have a council to advocate or hear us. You as our commissioners are assigned to steward over our precious mountainside and be the voice for our community members. Please represent us and do not support this rezone. You may say that it's only 3 houses, but if we don't start preserving now, another rezone will quickly turn 3 houses into 20, as it's already done so off of Eastwood and Skyline. There's very little left of this area that we will come back to have to ask again to not rezone. Sorry. We feel we have been taken advantage of in recent developments and not been able to do anything about it. Fighting for this park and now the non-rezone has been the first time this community has felt like we could fight for ourselves and our surroundings. We have come together, met neighbors we didn't know, and been with ones we've known for a long time. We worked hard together on this matter. We have mobilized as a community, and that's a beautiful thing. Please don't let all this community empowerment go in vain. Show us that we can come together and make a stand. That's how communities and local government is supposed to work, so let us see it work. If preventing only additional 3 houses is what we need to see that, please grant us that. In a world growing ever more isolated, this community came together to work on this cause. Please show us that our efforts are not in vain. In the 1970 Master Plan of Southeast Weber, it states, "Growth does not necessarily mean increased viability or prosperity for the community. These qualities are a result of the community's determination to maintain that balance of its use of land and resources." We are that determined community, and please help us protect that balance.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Michael Healy. I live, 3 of these homes will be along my back fence. At the time the general plan was written, there were 47 residents of neighborhood 9, which is this Uinta Highlands area. It was a blank slate. Planners envisioned a new junior high, a new park, open space. We have none of those. It feels like we're cherry picking part of the general plan that works for the developer when the rest of the general plan has largely gone unused. More recent general plans for the Ogden Valley and for the other portion of Ogden, they don't use the term low density in respect to houses per acre. If you do a control find on those documents, you won't find low density used the way it was 50 years ago. One reason that there was less community outcry for the subdivision that Nielsen is building in is because when you take a 500-foot radius of that property, it hits farm, it hits a couple houses to the east, it hits a school, and then it hits a couple houses to the west. So I don't believe that many people were notified of that meeting. We've got over 30 people here today. At the first meeting, we had over 50 people. So this new subdivision is also part of the subdivision I live in, the Highlands Bluff Estates Phase 1. Phase 1 has CC&Rs, which this proposal would violate. As a subdivision, there are 16 homeowners. A supermajority of those homeowners oppose this rezone. We would have been even more organized than this. We had a call from the church real estate group, and they said, this land isn't going to be going up for sale, and if it does, the houses will conform to the houses in the area. And both of those statements were false. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hi, my name is Julia Babelis Stevens, and I live on 5877 South, 2925 East. My father spoke to you earlier, and I think it's important to note there's actually quite a few people here that I grew up with. I'm third generation in this area. My grandparents used to live here. My parents do. My siblings are all in the area. There's a few others that spoke who grew up in this area as well. We've seen this change of development. We've seen houses go in. We've seen the community changing. I think what brought my attention to having to speak here today is the fact that the development that went in, and my sister bought one of the homes on the Eastwood development, where those were rezoned and the land, those lots are smaller. I think that it does not go with the conformity of the plan, or with the local community. And I think it's important to note also, in the document that everybody received, well, not everybody, I shouldn't say that, but that was given from the County Commission for the Zoning, which you have the report on your agenda today. Excuse me. For the Planning Commission recommendation, it specifically states that the area surrounding the proposed rezone was not developed in accordance with the general plan, and that the development pattern of the surrounding area is RE15, very low density. This is exactly why we're here today, is because this does not go with the conformity of the whole area. If you look at the document that they have up there, there are 6 houses on one end. If you look at the homes on the other side of that, there's about 3 or 4 homes. So you're going to have those homes butting other homes, numerous homes. So you have all these additional neighbors that are coming in, and it's changing the look of the land. And it's, as someone else noted, it's a problem with the ingress and egress of where the cars are, where people are staying. And I also wrote an email to you, all 3 of you, yesterday, stating a lot of my concerns with the development that's going on in the community and in that area. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Larry Matson. I live at 2235 East, 6275 South. And our property is just in that same area, in that same cul-de-sac. I appreciate Mr. Moore's presentation today. It's a lot more thorough than he was when he presented at the Planning Commission meeting. And I would ask that the support that you guys, that you look at here, are the renderings that were presented to us at the Planning Commission of the homes that would be presented, be built there. And I'll just draw your attention. You should have received a packet yesterday from me and from Bruce Nilsson. And in that Bruce summarized our presentation in December when we presented, when Bruce presented this same discussion. But if you look at the presentation of the homes that Mr. Moore presented to us, they do not conform with what's in the area. And I would just submit that putting yourselves in our position as residents there, that you take that into consideration as to the continuity of the area. And so that's the concern that we have, is we want to maintain the continuity of the area. And so thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Jan Healy. I'm really happy to be here today, and I am impressed with how my Weber County government works. I haven't been here before, so this is interesting for me.
Welcome.
Thank you. I live at 2258 East, 6275 South, in the cul-de-sac that's right behind what we call the Bowery, where this is going in, Lot 1. I've written this down so I don't forget anything. I have 3 concerns that have not been addressed today. From the point of view of the subdivision behind the Bowery. The first is the Thanksgiving, we had a really heavy snowfall, and I watched the snow removal truck take 2 hours trying to get the snow between the driveways in our little cul-de-sac. And it wasn't even the biggest snowfall we've had. We've had much bigger ones than that. But it was a real headache. And as I look at this map, there isn't as much room between those homes as there are between our homes. And there is no way a snow removal truck is going to be able to shove that snow out into my cul-de-sac road because there isn't room for it. He's going to have to put it between their lots as well. And there isn't room for it. The second one, occasionally the trains coming down Weber County touch off fires below us, and they come straight up the hillside through the brush and dry grass. As we know from the recent fires, sometimes there are only minutes to get out of a neighborhood. If you allow 39 three-car garages, so 13 three-car garages, 39 more cars between me and the outlet for my neighborhood, I'm not going to be able to get out. And the third thing, the intersection of Skyline and Wasatch, where there are 500 new units in the apartments there. During rush hour, there are lines of cars on all 4 of those roads coming into that intersection. And everybody's anxious to get out during rush hour, and it's getting scary. There's going to need to be a light there, which is only a few feet from the other light. And if you add 39 more cars to that, it's just going to add additional traffic jams. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'll be quick. I need to go to another meeting, but as a developer of all that area.
Hold on, former elected official John Reeve here at the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself.
Some of us know who you are, but please, for those that may be listening on the internet, state your name and address.
John Reeve. I actually live now in South Weber.
Okay.
I moved there last year, so I could see a lot of this coming. One of the concerns I have is also to be engineer and seeing many development happen. This year, I see things are shrinking. I see smaller homes. But the thing I also see is what people do with their trailers, their extra cars, with the other things that they have nowadays they didn't have back 30 years ago. I developed a lot of lots in this area. They were all 30-acre lots. And every one of them is functioning well because they have places to put their other toys, which they have. And everybody has them this day. The other thing is I'm concerned about the width of that road and the width where the snow goes. Now, the home I have down South Weber has a wide road. But this last storm they had, I had 2 feet of snow piled in my driveway off the road. And that's going to happen here. This has a lot of snow up here. I remember years we've had 3-4 feet of snow. Where's it going to go? People want to drive in their driveway. They want access to their homes. How are they going to do that? Where's the snow going? It won't be going on their property because they won't have room for it. Where are they going to put their boats, their trailers? It won't be on their property because they won't have room for it. Or they'll be in the street. Those are the concerns I have for small lots. And I see it happening all over the county. You go down to, Roy, look at where the cars are. Look where the boats are. They don't have room on their lots to put them there. They're going to be out in the street. How do you get by with the traffic? How do you do that? How do you manage those kind of things in that neighborhood? It's a concern that I have for this area. I moved from this area because I could see these things coming. South Ogden is creeping in. They wanted to annex this whole thing just a couple of years ago. As neighbors, we fought it because we weren't going to get anything from it. Weber County is serving us very well out here. They service our 30-acre lots, which won't be here. And I think that Weber County is going to have problems here. Number one, maintaining the roads, snow removal. Those are going to be a concern on these lots. It's not a matter of they're smaller. Well, okay, people like smaller homes, but you won't be able to maintain them. And that's something you should be concerned about. It's how you can maintain that road and maintain the responsibilities you have to those people. It's not going to be easy. I see it happening all over the place. A lot of apartments going up. Where are those homes? Are they parked underneath the apartments? Sometimes, but a lot of them aren't. They're parked within the project and out in the roads and everything else. I think at Wasatch right now, it's very much congested. It's going to get worse. So it's not a matter of size of homes. It is a matter of size of homes. The size of lots has a lot to do with it. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for being here. Next.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
My name is Merle Lindley. I reside on this little map we've got drawn out. If you look at the area going in, we're the first house on the right. And if you look at their illustration here, there will be 3 homes that will border their backyard will be facing us. In fact, one of these homes will be our front yard, will be there. So what I would like to do, if I may, I've got some literature here that I've printed up that I would like to present to you folks, if I may.
Go ahead, bring it up.
And I've got, you know, I was over at Zubert, and I guess how many people I thought would be here. So we got some extras there for you to mark up.
Got an extra.
This is the points that I had intending on making, and I may not get to all of them, so don't be redundant. I'll try not to be redundant, but I can't say anything hardly without being redundant, because everything has been covered pretty well. The only thing I can say, as you look at this little paper I put together, is you see the redundant things, and as you've heard the redundant things, hopefully that they will instill the points that is affecting our neighborhood. Now, okay, I give you my name, and I reside at 6224 South, 2225 East, is the address that is listed on your thing you put out, the little paper you put out. That's the address that's listed there. I am adjacent to it. I'm very closely adjacent to it. I will be brief. I'll try to be brief in this. We, the surrounding homeowners, feel confident that the proposed buyers were familiar with, understood the property zoning at the time they made the offer to purchase the property. For some reason, now this has kind of changed. Although they were maybe familiar with it, I'm sure at the time felt like they would not have to accept it, that they would be able to get that zoning changed. And very like they can. And it's been not trying to be redundant, but can't help it being. If the difference is so minuscule, then why are we trying to change the zoning? If it is as minuscule as it was presented to us. We, the surrounding homeowners, oppose the rezoning for all of the following reasons. One of it is traffic congestion, which has been talked about. Secondary is water. Now, our water supply there, due to probably the altitude that we are, relation to the reservoirs, is very weak. Is that my time there?
Yeah, we'll give you another 30 seconds. We have your sheet in front of you, so
okay.
We'll give you 30 more seconds.
Yeah. Anyway, the secondary water is a problem in that area. We do not have much water pressure to deal with. Culinary water, we've experienced both a rate increase and a limitation on our culinary water in the last 2 years. Sewer, fire danger has been mentioned. Noise level, I don't think has been mentioned, but it would definitely be affected. The schools has been talked about. We haven't mentioned pets. The thing with pets is we're we'll experience a lot more pet activity. I don't know how you put that many homes in an area that you don't. Now, dogs are pretty well controlled in that area. The county does that, but cats are not, and cats, they can roam at their will, and as many cats as you want. So, all right, we realize to maintain the present zoning does not eliminate the concerns, but it greatly diminishes those concerns. We are powerless to see any reason that rezoning this property from the RE15 to the R110 would complement or enhance our community, or that it would restrict the buyer's objective to construct homes. We enormously object to the rezoning, and thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Next.
My name is Cassie McDaniel. I live at 2265 East. I'm just right behind 10, 11, and 12 up there, adjacent to it. We bought our house 3 years ago, and we searched and searched and searched for something that would have a little bit more lot, a lot of view. I'm from Morgan County. We searched for a long time to find something that would fit our family's needs. I have 3 kids, 6 and under. So basically I'm going to look out my backyard, and with the proposed change, I understand we're not getting a park, which of course breaks my heart because that's part of the reason that we bought it. But even going from more lots to fewer, I'm going to look out my backyard and see 3 houses, 3 backyards instead of 1 or 2. And my mind keeps going to this event that happened last year in Layton where a dog, he mentioned pet activity, bit off a 4-year-old's hand through a fence. I'm going to have to deal with more pets, more neighbors, and that's just my big concern is having more backyard neighbors. I'm going to go from none and beautiful scenery to all the issues that come with having more neighbors. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Chair, for Commissioners. I
morning.
represent both as a resident of that area and the County Planning Commission. They talked a little bit about the zoning over on Eastwood and how people did not come. There were people that came and supported that rezoning. There was one that said they were opposed to it as well at the Planning Commission meeting. So. And their comment was they wanted the smaller lots, and that property was bordered by a street that's quite busy as well as a school, so it kind of had isolated it kind of created a boundary where the higher density could happen. Although, and the finding of the Planning Commission was, even though the rezoning is consistent with the wording of the general plan, the plan is almost 50 years old, and at that time it was 40% vacant and another 40% agricultural, and so it was all empty. And the development has happened since then at RE15, and so our finding was that good planning practices indicate that zoning should reflect the overall character of the area. Neighborhoods should not be isolated, and higher zoning should be on arterial or collector streets. This area is more surrounded by RE15 on all 4 sides, where the Eastwood property had the school across the street and farmland on the other side. So that made a difference. The other thing I'd like to bring up on this property is would like to have the egress not come to the stop sign, have it come out on the main street, because that would make a better development and not cause congestion in our area. But the Planning Commission findings were just based on good planning practices and the fact that the general plan is quite outdated and needs to be revised. So, thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
I'm Tina Manning. I live at 6178 South 2300 East. My property backs up the two far lots there. And my concern is, I've lived out there for 51 years. Our lot is almost an acre, and my husband has a huge garden and chickens, and we have the privilege of having animals back there, as do our neighbors at the east end of that. My concern is, what about when I get these new neighbors in there that have paid $600,000 plus, and they don't like my chickens? You know, is that going to be an issue? Because if the lots are narrow, that means they're going to have to build this way, which pushes them farther back to my lot. It might or not be an issue, but it is a concern for us because that is part of our being out there and something that we enjoy as a privilege of having a bigger lot in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Gentlemen, I'm a 90-year-old, hard-of-hearing woman who lives in the cul-de-sac that we're talking about. And I know you're all tired and you want to go home and at least get a bite to eat. What I also know is that every one of you is at least a father, perhaps a grandfather, over and over and over again. What I know about my neighborhood is that we have, I haven't counted for sure, but we have 20 to 25 young children who leave through that stop sign at the end of the road every single day, and they come home every day. There is at least one car in every garage, 2, sometimes 3, that go through that stop sign at the end of the road. So we're going to add 13 more homes here, all of whom are going to use that stop sign. That means 13 more children coming and going, at least one more car out of each of those carports, garages, whatever you want to call them, perhaps 2. What I'd ask of you is that, in consideration of the children in that neighborhood, whatever power you have, would you consider, I've listened to you the best I could, hear you talk about money and how the county spends its money. What we need there in that area is a park for the children to play in. And I know if you lived there and you had children, you would agree with me. There is already a backstop for a baseball field. There's a covered parking for table for people to come, have family reunions, bring whoever they like. So my request of you is that you think seriously about the fact that you have not had one single person from that area agree that that change should be made. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, did you give your name and address, ma'am? Ma'am?
Pardon?
Would you please give your name and address?
2236 East, 6275 South.
And your name?
Diane Cantrell.
Thank you very much. Next. By a show of hands, how many people do we have left in the audience that would like to speak to this issue? Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to thank the members of the public that attended our public hearing today. They conducted themselves in a very respectful, professional manner. I thought their comments were well taken, and we appreciate them taking time out of their day to give us insight into what they feel is best for the community. We appreciate it very much. We'll decide here in just a few minutes the action we're going to take, but please be aware that the process that we have just gone through is a very important process to the democracy of our county, state, and nation, and without you, we wouldn't have the ability to make decisions like this. So thank you very much. Mr. Moore, would you like to make a closing statement?
Yes.
I'll allow that.
Thank you. I'd just like to address a few of the concerns that came up in the comments from the residents. And honestly, I want to thank those that have come. I want to reiterate, this is a very nice area with obviously residents that take pride in in the neighborhood and what is going to be developed there. I still believe there may be concerns that are outside of what we are asking for. A few of the things I want to address quickly. Right before our application was made, Mr. Burton contacted me and asked me to submit some floor plans. These homes in this area will be specific and custom on each of the lots. Hence, we did not have plans available. I have provided copies to you, commissioners, of plans. There are many plans that will fit on these lots that are very nice custom homes, and I apologize for the plans that we had submitted. I didn't see the concern or the question at that point with it being a rezone application. So the homes, I believe, will very much exceed the existing homes in the area and the quality and size and type of home. Now, a couple of issues. Number of the residents that spoke live adjacent to this proposed subdivision. One of the things I didn't say in my opening comments, the RE15 zone, if it stays in this zone, requires a 30-foot setback. The R110 zone is a 20-foot front setback. If we leave it in the existing zone, the homes will be 10 feet closer to the existing homes than they would be in making this change. And I should have made that point initially. This zone change will actually move homes further away from the existing homes. There was a lot of talk about these lots being too small and not being able to maintain and much smaller than the existing homes. We did a quick analysis of the adjoining lots, and they average about 0.36 acres. Our proposal in the R110 zone, due to the dimensions of the property and the way it lays out, our lots are about 0.3. There's a difference of about 0.3 to 0.36. In terms of width, if you take our proposal and average all of those lots, our lots average approximately 90 feet wide in width. There was talk about that being too narrow or not being able to accommodate RVs or things of that type. I think that the majority of these homes will most likely have 3-car garages. Even in the R110 zone, the side yards still end up at essentially 12 feet on each side, which is more than adequate room for RV drives, even on the side of a 3-car garage home. There's plenty of parking. I don't see parking in the cul-de-sac or that being an issue. I think really in the end, the question is what this zone change means. Does a larger lot affect a change in that area? Does it protect or continue a certain look or a certain way that the area is? I think, as I said originally, there is keeping the existing zone does not guarantee or determine what type of home is built on that. With this shift, we can use more of that towards amenities, towards size, towards garages, towards finishes in the home. And that's really what we're working towards. Some commented that this is a minuscule change, and why do we want to do it if it's minuscule? Really, it's what I see as the buyers today are looking for. We've had buyers that have contacted us, and they have essentially said, if it's a larger lot, I don't want that. My children are gone. There's talk of traffic or school children. We're really looking towards more of an empty nester market. a buyer that is looking for a one-level home, a larger home of a different plan. That doesn't say that all of them are that, but that is the buyer that we're mainly focusing towards, that does not want a 0.4 or a half-acre lot. So hopefully I've addressed all of those. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have, commissioners, and we would I'd certainly welcome your approval.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Moore before we move on?
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn public hearing and reconvene public meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn public hearing and reconvene our public meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now in a public meeting. So we're at a point of taking action. The chair will entertain a motion. Commissioner Jenkins.
I'd like to get Steve Burton back up here to ask him a couple of
Okay.
questions.
Mr. Burton?
So Steve, Mr. Moore mentioned that quarter acres allows him to put the home closer to the front of the lot. The side sets on these lots are exactly the same as third acre lots, right?
No, the setbacks are different.
Side sets.
Side sets.
Sides?
Not-
That's correct. We're talking 10 feet.
Okay, so the side sets are exactly the same. So what it allows, when they start talking about RVs and things like that, that puts them where they would be normally anyway. So the squeeze, when you squeeze a balloon like this, you say, okay, where does it go? It goes in the length of the home into the back of the their lot. Is that correct?
Are you referring to where a home goes on the lot?
Square footage.
Yeah, so anywhere that fits within those setbacks, that's
So if
correct.
the setbacks are the same and they're 20 feet narrower, then if you want a 3,000 square foot home, it's going to go out back more.
Or up.
Or up, yeah, that's correct, or up. Okay.
Or down,
Just
I
want to
suppose.
make sure I understand this.
Just no questions?
Oh, that's pretty simple.
Mr. Burton, clarify for me, this was a unanimous decision by the Planning Commission or not?
That's correct. It was a unanimous decision.
How many people voted for that? How many people are on the commission that voted that night, or that day?
So unanimous, I don't remember how many were there. I'd ask, maybe Commissioner, 7 were there.
7? Thank you. Additional comments or questions? Commissioner Harvey, you have that look on your face.
Mr. Chair, pardon me? The Eastwood property that came, having lived out there for nearly 50 years, when the Eastwood property came before us and we ended up all voting for it, I had many, many calls from people in that area that said, will you please vote for this? I had one call from Bill Lose. Many of you know Bill. We brought in a gentleman behind him and we talked about it and they understood what was going on. And those were the 2 opposed. You mentioned one, Mr. Moore. There were 2. But I think ended up saying, hey, this was okay. In the 3 years I've been here, I hadn't had more discussion on property than I had, even out on 12th Street and 4700, than I had about that piece of property off of Eastwood, until this one. And maybe it's just because having grown up in the neighborhood, many of you know me and a lot of you have my number, and that's great, and I'm glad those calls came in. So I want you to know right up front, commissioners, I hope that Mr. Moore is very successful in that neighborhood. Personally living in a Uinta area, upper Uinta area cul-de-sac, we have 3 driveways in our cul-de-sac, and with the amount of snowfall, we have a tough place stacking snow. The R110 is, according to just these preliminary drawings, show 5 driveways into there. I can't support that because I'm going to support the snowplow operator on this. I hope, commissioners, you'd vote with me to support the snowplow operator. You'd vote with me to support the Planning Commission's recommendation to deny. I hope you'd vote with me in supporting the people in the neighborhood. As you said, voix populi, as they say down there in the legislature, the voice of the people. And so I hope you'd vote with me to oppose the petition to rezone. That's my comment.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Sure, I'd make a motion that we approve the rezone.
We have a motion to approve the rezone. I'm going to second that motion. Discussion to the motion. Commissioner Harvey, do you have any
I've
additional
said my
comments?
piece. I think it's a mistake to approve.
Commissioner Jenkins, for the motion?
You know, I've quite enjoyed this public hearing. You people are wonderful. You've been very respectful of us, and I'm a private property rights guy. I believe that we have the right to do what we can with our property within reason. We approved a subdivision similar to this just up the street earlier this year, and I'm okay with that. I look at the side sets, and I don't see anything that's any tougher here than any other subdivision. It's not easy, but you know, if you're going to afford to build on these lots in the future, they're going to have to be smaller. The price of property is just going too high. And our increase on property values in Utah are at a high nationally, and we just can't afford it right now. It's a lot of money, so I'm doing everything I can to help. And I don't know these folks, the developer. I have no relationship with them. I just I support this within reason, and I think their proposal today was very reasonable. So that's why I support it.
Mr. Chair, point of question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Erickson, as our legal counsel, the Planning Commission, as I understand it, unanimously voted not to approve this subdivision coming forward. Is that correct?
I was not there. I've been told that. I've heard it here today. I was told that before.
Mr. Grover, is that correct? You know, and I really like supporting our staff, and I knew you had a recommendation there. But in this case, I think it's a vote of the Planning Commission. Do we not, as a Weber County body, have an obligation to support our Planning Commission in their right to deny? And if so, do we have an ordinance on the books? Doesn't it require us to be a unanimous commission in this particular case?
Let me read that to you. I was prepared for this very issue. Section, and this is in the Weber County Code, Section 102-1-5 discusses legislative amendments which would include rezones that come before you after consideration by a planning commission. First, it talks about holding a public hearing, as you've done today, and the sentence that addresses this particular issue says, the unanimous vote of the full body of the county commission is required to overturn the recommendation of the planning commission if there was a unanimous vote of the planning commission in favor or denial of the petition. So my interpretation of that, I think it's fairly plain. If there was a unanimous vote of the planning commission in favor or against a proposal for an amendment to the county ordinances, which we're dealing with here, a legislative decision, then it requires a unanimous vote of the full body of the county commission to overturn that planning commission recommendation.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Harvey?
It does. Thank you.
Commissioner Jenkins, you have any additional comments before we move forward?
Call the question.
So it looks like that my vote is not going to make a lot of difference anyway, at this point in time, which is good. That means I can vote either way and still be okay. But I did want to make a couple of comments, make it clear. Obviously, growth is a major issue in this county. We've talked about it. It's time we deal with the growth issues. We can no longer afford to go down the path of large lots that continue to exclude not out-of-state people, but our own kids and grandkids from locating back in these communities. The price of housing, as you all know, has exponentially increased over the last several years, which impacts our families. We're a family-friendly environment in Weber County in the state of Utah. I'm a private property rights advocate. I have been from day one. That I believe that within reason, a person should have the ability to do with his land what is allowed under statute and county ordinance. I did receive a number of emails. It reminded me of my house days when I'd receive 1,000 in a couple of days. It wasn't nearly that much, but I did appreciate it. Most of those emails were respectful, which I appreciated. There were a few, though, that I had to take exception to, which accused us as a county body of not providing the park to the residents. I can say without a doubt, we worked very diligently in trying to acquire that park. I spent hours myself, along with Commissioner Jenkins and Harvey, in trying to make that a reality. I need to make it clear, however, that it's not, in my opinion, the county's responsibility to provide parks. We have park districts in Ogden Valley. We have park districts out west. The citizens make the decision to have a park or not have a park, and they make the decision to increase taxes because of that. That's not our job. That's up to the citizens. So I take personal offense when people accuse me of undiligence in the office of not purchasing that park. That's totally inaccurate. With that, any additional comments before I place the vote?
That's absolutely correct what you said.
Thank you very much. So I would just make sure that the people that are here today take that message back to their community, that this commission did a very respectful job in trying and working with the church to acquire that site. It wasn't in the cards. Okay, we did not have to take that stance and be proactive in that issue. I can tell you that. It would have put us in a situation where we would have taken money out of the general fund to acquire it. So please be aware of that. I appreciate it. With that, I'm going to place the vote. The vote is on ordinance number 1, rezone approximately 4.59 acres from RE15 to RE10. And the motion is to approve the rezone. Is that right?
That's right.
Just so we're clear. I'm going to place the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Fatima. Forgot it was an ordinance. Go ahead.
So, okay, Commissioner Harvey,
Nay.
Commissioner Jenkins, and Chair Porter.
Nay. Thank you very much for being here. Motion fails. Rezone is denied.
It wasn't an ordinance, I'm sorry.
Two against one, you beat the crap out of them. Did you know? In fact,
when people personally attack me for not taking that action, I take offense to that because we busted our.
Oh, I guess I should have said. You should have slipped with the tongue.
If I could ask everybody to please leave the auditorium if they're not here for the next item. We haven't officially adjourned yet. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioners, we're not adjourned. I'm looking for a motion. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that.
No comment. Motion to, unless...
Commissioner comments.
Well, you know, I've been through lots of public hearings in my time as a mayor. You know, it was interesting. Today we was talking about the Ogden Eccles Convention Center. I was mayor during that time, 1992, when we were trying to make that decision. And I opposed that. And you can see why. $39 million, I felt like it was a stretch too far. But it worked out. I'm not saying it doesn't work out. And traditionally, they do work out. But, you know, these are not terrible decisions. They are weighty decisions. And we understand why they do some of the things they do. And in the end, we have a wonderful facility over there. And we're looking at remodeling it right now. So it's been a wonderful thing. It's just that sometimes the burdens are real heavy. And as you can see, a $39 million interest payment on 35 is substantial. And so I'm anxious to make sure that we remain frugal as a commission and try to pay cash as much as we can. And you can see, by doing so, we benefit our citizens in a major way. And that was demonstrated today by Mr. Bond when he gave us the information he did. And that's why I asked him to do it, because I wanted to look at that and see what the actual amounts were. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Comments? Commissioner Harvey.
You know, one of the things that I've enjoyed most in my role as here is I have such a profound respect for the two of you. You're great men, not just very savvy and smart businessmen, and I understand by which your comments come with the conference center and the interest. You're very, very successful, both of you, very, very successful. In one case, you've started from nothing and grew an empire. In another case, just let me enjoy my opinion. And in the other case, with you, Commissioner Frohr, being third or fourth generation, you've exponentially grown your family business, but both of you have honored your parents. Most importantly, you've honored your parents in what you do. When the doors are shut, I learn a great deal from you. And when the doors are open, I learn a great deal from you. I love the fact that we can get in a meeting like this and disagree. Yet when we walk out of here, we'll be friends. And that means a great deal. It's great to be able to learn, because of when you open, like my opening comment and thought today, when you get out into the world, you tend to learn a little more where we are similar. And I just want both of you to know how much I appreciate you. Looking forward to your leadership, Commissioner Frohr, and appreciate your mentorship, Commissioner Jenkins, very much. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Very much appreciated. I'm excited about 2020 coming up. We accomplished a lot in 2019. As we've said before, Commissioner Jenkins, rode us hard. So we're going to do that again in 2020. But today, I think is proof that we as a body can disagree on certain issues without being disagreeable. One of the first things I learned in the legislature, and I may have told you this before, Commissioner Harvey, Commissioner Jenkins knows this very well, is that don't take offense to anybody that votes against your bill. Because the minute you do that, you you may need them as your best friend tomorrow on your bill. So get over it. Make sure that you speak out on the points that you believe in, that you put forth your issues in a professional and a respectful manner, but never take it personal. And I think that's the basis as we move forward for this commission for 2020 with a great staff that we have. I'm just excited about the prospects for what we can accomplish this next year. So thank you two very much. It's going to be an honor and a privilege to work with you again for 12 months. And with that, I'm open for a motion.
I was of the opinion we were going to go to a closed session today.
We are.
I don't see that. Oh, right there.
Yeah.
I'd make a motion that we close this meeting and go to a closed session.
The
And
motion,
discuss imminent litigation.
yeah, for imminent litigation. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call. Sorry.
Aye?
Commissioner Jenkins? Aye. And Chair Farrar?
Aye. We're adjourned and going into closed session.
Tim, how you doing, bud? Pressure today.
Tim, you had some stuff today to write about. Yeah.